ما الذي يحدث عمليا حينما يسفه الإنسان نفسه وينبذ كلام خالقه وراء ظهره ثم يضع هذه في مكانه؟
A woman who's engaged to the light of her life. She fell head over heels with a chandelier.
I wasn't looking for anyone else because I was madly in love with the Statue of Liberty. So it came as a complete shock and a surprise. When I first saw Lumiere online, it was definitely love at first sight.
I did not expect to find a fence like this here at all. He's perfect. I mean, this is the shape that I like so much. These angles, fabulous. Wow, he is really tall.
Yes, he is. I not only love him for a sexual attraction, I love him as a mate.
I'm in love with my car, a sexual attraction.
What's it like to be in love with a doll? Meet Sayori. Nakajima wasn't always alone, but one relationship after another fell apart. When he met Sayori, he found someone he could take care of, someone that he couldn't disappoint.
うちのかみさんと会ったのは26歳ですね。結婚だってね、別に苦しい生活になるとは思ってなく、まあ彼女らがいなかったらどういう選択をするかっていうと、死ぬ準備をしてたでしょうね。娘のために生きるっていうことはないですよね。だから必要とそんなにされてないので。
من هنا ستتصاعد أو بالأصح تنحدر الأمور بتسارع شديد.
Question that has arisen in many blogs and all over the internet on necrophilia and how we philosophically feel about necrophilia and why it is that we have such disgust towards this.
Your question that you asked is very important because it actually ends up being a very complicated philosophical debate, and people don't really know how they feel about it. Some people say that necrophilia is wrong. Let's put the law aside for a moment. And they say that it's wrong because it reflects poorly on us. It makes us feel bad. It's really for the living, not for the dead.
Right, so it brings up the question of consent and who is a victim in this particular case. Can a corpse consent? No, but is the corpse a victim? And that's the question that I think is more interesting. You can argue that because a corpse is no longer living, then perhaps the corpse shouldn't be considered a victim. However, will sort of desecrating a victim's body negatively impact the family relatives, so relatives, family members, loved ones of that deceased person, especially when they have religious beliefs that, you know, are against this sort of practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the argument from religion is probably the strongest one, but all the other arguments, including consent and disturbance to the families, rests on the assumption that people are their bodies, and that after they die, they continue in some sense being those bodies. And a lot of people would say that's not the case. So then how does the law come down on that?
The law is actually unclear, so there's no federal law that states necrophilia is wrong, so legally. However, different states have different laws, and these laws range from misdemeanor to felony depending on where you live. So we clearly don't have a consensus around this. But from an evolutionary perspective, I think that it makes sense that this would disgust us, right? Like in terms of, you know, bacteria and our own health and safety concerns, we probably don't want to be that close to anyone who's deceased. They may have passed away because of an infectious disease, and it also completely sort of, it takes away the whole purpose of procreation, right? Having sex is meant to have, it's supposed to be for having children. You can't have children with a deceased body.
Evolutionarily speaking,
yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
I'm so disturbed every time I talk about this. I just like think about it. I'm like, ah.
Right, because it hits us on a gut level as
yeah,
wrong.
My gut response to this is like, oh my gosh, obviously this is wrong. But like when you try to eloquently put it into a philosophical argument, then you're like,
which is exactly why we should be talking about it.
Why is incest wrong? It's not clear to me that it's wrong. Okay. It's clear to me. There's an evolution. No. Listen to me. Listen to me. Wait, let's give him the respect, please. He's got a justification.
You asked me a question, and if you want me to answer, I will.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay. The point is, most societies have a taboo on incest, and it's an empirical one. Generally, incest produces genetic defects.
Yes.
Okay. And so in general, there's a physiological reason and a societal one why incest is wrong.
Yes.
But if you ask me the question, is it, and this is an interesting question, by the way, if a brother and a sister loved each other and used contraception, is there something absolutely morally wrong about that? And that, by the way, and it was once, and they went off and it didn't affect anything else, I'd have to think about it, because I don't think there's any absolute condemnation of that fact. If they love each other and care for each other, and they go off and it doesn't affect anything else.
Okay.
When Lawrence Krauss was having a debate with some Muslim spokesman in London, this Muslim spokesman, as it were, put him on the spot by saying, "What's wrong with incest?" Lawrence very sensibly said, "Well, I'm not sure that there is that much wrong with incest, really. I mean, if there's no danger of children being born," he sort of went through all the reasons why one might be against incest. And then he said that you need to come up with some sort of a reason why incest would be wrong. The Muslim audience was horrified. I mean, they sort of gasped that anybody should consider the question in a sort of rational way.
Every year, around 250,000 adoptions take place around the world. But what happens when these adopted children become adults and set out to find their biological families? By their nature, reunions are bound to be emotional events. But there's one unexpected feeling that's putting ordinary people into a very unusual situation.
Tell me what this is, genetic sexual attraction.
GSA it's an attraction that happens between family members who've been separated for most of their lives and haven't had the chance to bond properly.
The only academic study into genetic sexual attraction was conducted in the UK in 1995 by Dr. Maurice Greenberg. It found that a normal family bond established in childhood through touching and affection was missing between the relatives. When reunited as adults, the need for that bond resurfaced, and in about half of these cases manifested itself as a strong sexual attraction.
What's your story?
My father and I reunited last year, and we had a great reunion. It was very emotional. This sort of propelled us into this intense, hyper relationship where we were constantly communicating.
Is there a sexual component to it now?
Oh, there wasn't at first.
But then there was.
Well, exactly.
Let's take some calls and see what our viewers want to say about this. Dave in Texas, go right ahead.
I had a son at a very young age. I was not allowed to be a part of his life growing up. When he turned 26, he re-entered my life. By this time, I was married and had children with my wife, and he and my daughter entered into a GSA relationship.
How old were they at the time?
He was 26, she was 17.
Ooh.
Here's an interesting thing. This is weird. You can have sex in this country when you're 16, but you can't buy pornography until you're 18. That's an odd law, isn't it? So you can have sex when you're 16, but you're not allowed to watch other people have sex for another 2 years. So if you're 16, you can have sex, just don't look down.
Diane and Steve are mother and son, but for the last 10 years they've lived as man and wife. Diane was just 14 when she gave birth to Steve and was immediately forced to give him up for adoption.
It was a very painful feeling when it started to become sexual. It shattered my mind.
Most are in hiding, but others are starting to speak out about their unusual relationships and fighting for their right to stay together, forcing us to ask the question, is incest the last taboo? Ruth was adopted as a baby. 25 years later, never having heard of GSA and without any counselling, she tracked down her biological father, who was living abroad.
It just felt so right being together. We even felt that it couldn't actually possibly be true. Maybe it would all turn out to be a horrible mistake and we wouldn't be related and then we could be together forever. We had a DNA test and unfortunately, that came back positive to being related. So we started thinking, making plans for us to split up. And the day before I was leaving him, I discovered that I was pregnant. So I left the next day pregnant. We agonised on the phone day after day about what we should do. The separation was so hard.
When I was 16, I was in high school and I got pregnant, and my family was not happy about it. And in 1952, this was just totally unheard of. So they decided that I would go to maternity home and hide out until the baby was born, and then I would give it up for adoption. When I first saw my son, when he came to the door that day, the first thing I said to him was, "Oh my God, you look just like your father." So we stayed up and talked. He was just trying to fill me in on his life. I was trying to fill him in on my life. And when he wanted to go home, I walked out to the car with him, and we spent another 2 hours standing by the car. As he was coming over, it was getting more and more like I felt like I was dating. Like I wanted to be with him and do things with him and go places with him and have him over. I would make excuses to get him to come over and have other people over, anything to get him to come over.
This is John, my father and my partner, Celeste, my daughter and sister, and I'm Jenny. For us, it was never really a choice, was it? It was just something that the relationship progressed. And it just happened.
It just happened, yeah.
We found ourselves in that situation.
I think genetic sexual attraction needs to come out, much like the gay movement did.
This can't stay still. We've got to be talking about this. We got to get this out here, because now I know there's a lot of them out there. A lot of them aren't going to talk about it because they're ashamed. But it's there, and it has to be talked about.
What would you say to people who disagree with your relationship? It's their right to disagree. Basically, I mightn't agree with something else someone else does, but who am I to say? It's their life, it's my life. We're consenting adults and we're not hurting anybody,
No,
so
that's right.
just let us get on with our life.
There is no victim in this situation. Who have we harmed? We were both consenting adults and it was love.
Of course, in many countries in Europe and across the world, consensual intercourse between adults from the same family is not illegal. And in fact, in recent years, in countries such as Argentina, Brazil and Japan, they have decriminalised incest.
Dawn Gabb is a director of the Libertarian Alliance. They feel the state should steer clear of legislating on personal relationships.
There are many other kinds of sexual relationship which may produce offspring with a higher chance of birth defects. Should we, for example, stop people from conceiving children when the woman's above the age of, shall we say, 37? Because once you get past the age of 37, certainly past the age of 40, the chance of birth defects does increase substantially. Now, that would be a monstrous breach of human rights. This is a matter of consenting adults. I think at the moment it's illegal by default. If there were a public debate, it would be decriminalised maybe in an afternoon. I don't think most people like it, but I don't think most people believe that the state should go after people doing it.
In recent years, the GSA community has become increasingly visible.
And it's going to happen a lot more with the sperm donation people, but unless they open up those records too, so that people will know if they're meeting a brother or sister too, or do something about the way they're doing sperm donations, because you can be related to an awful lot of people.
Many also favour open adoptions as a possible solution to the problem.
A child would never lose their name, they would never lose contact with their family, they would have a new mom and dad and live in a new home, but they'd have visitation with their original family, there'd be no sealed records, no loss of heritage.
German siblings, whose love for each other went to the extreme.
They look like any ordinary couple, but Patrick is Susan's brother.
Patrick Stubing was jailed for over 2 years for repeatedly having sex with his sister Suzanne. He'll be sent back to prison for 17 months. Dr. Wilhelm's case is that Germany's incest laws discriminate against siblings because they deny them the basic human right to adult consensual sex. He believes that if the case fails, it will show that the state can decide who can and cannot have children. An uncomfortable thought given Germany's history.
Does society want something like this?
I need an animal to be happy. If I did not have it, there would be something missing. There are several levels of relationship with an animal. You can fall in love with your animal, then the sexual relationship is not out of the question.
These people make up some of the estimated 100,000 zoophiles in Germany. It has been legal since the country's animal welfare laws were relaxed in 1969. That's when sex with animals was dropped from the statute books. It has led to a boom in the practice and the proliferation of websites and even brothels devoted to it. After new laws approved this week come into force, the practice will again be considered illegal. Denmark, Sweden and Belgium are currently the only EU states without a zoophilia law. That leaves the prospect that these countries could become a destination for zoophilic tourism.
There was never a day in my life when I was growing up and I said, okay, I think I'm going to go have sex with animals today. It started out when I was very small. I just had a deep connection with animals. There was no decision made.
I see animals as spiritual beings first, and because I see them as my spiritual equals.
I've been with animals, I've been with humans. I love to be with both. A lot of human men they don't like foreplay. Dogs love foreplay. They love to have a good time, they love to have sex.
Mark married Pixel in an unofficial ceremony 7 years ago.
I love Pixel. She's gorgeous. My God, that's a beautiful little pony.
Laurie and Michael were both sexually active with animals when they married.
I feel there are a lot more women who are with their dogs that men have no idea.
Sarah was 36 when her husband first began to suspect her relationship with Miles, the family dog. He decided to have Miles castrated. How do we know that you're not forcing sex on your animals?
She's not tied up. She could walk away. She could kick the living bejesus out of me. You ever try to do something to a dog really didn't like? At least the dog has all its teeth.
Nobody asks animals whether they want to work for us, serve as foods for us in a restaurant or at home. Nobody asks the animal anything. People just take animals for granted. But when it comes to having sex with animals, all of a sudden people start feeling very uncomfortable about this and say this is abuse. But killing animals, that's okay because we eat them.
We're not just talking about physical pain, we're also talking about mental suffering like boredom from confinement in cages or stress from those conditions.
Suppose you have a painkiller and can give it to your child to cure a headache, or use it to prevent the same amount of pain in a chimpanzee.
I think it's okay to give it to your child.
I suppose the chimpanzee had a much worse headache and your child
Yeah, then it
has
starts to become more doubtful. I would then say it's better to give it to the chimpanzee, but on the other hand, if someone did give it to their child, this would be, I think, a case of what Parfit called blameless wrongdoing. So it's the wrong choice, but we don't blame somebody for being a loving parent.
It is a fact that there is sexual contact between some humans and animals. Why we have such a taboo on this? Now, obviously, sometimes it involves cruelty and the infliction of power and dominance on an animal, and clearly I oppose that. But there can be occasions, I don't know, you know, it's a family program, how much vivid description you want, but...
Go ahead.
Okay, here's an example. A woman has oral sex performed by her dog. The dog is free to do it or walk away. There's no dominance over the dog, okay? That seems to me harmless if it's her dog who enjoys doing it. I don't see why we have a huge taboo. Is it wrong is the question, right? Since I wrote this little piece, I've had people, sex therapists, come to me and say that they've had patients who were tortured with guilt because they got some sexual satisfaction from contact with their animals, and their lives were miserable. And they gave them my article, and that helped them because it helped them to see that other people were doing the same sort of thing. And here was at least somebody who was saying, you know, this is not a sign of terrible moral evil.
This is a matter of consenting adults. I think at the moment it's illegal by default. If there were a public debate, it would be decriminalised maybe in an afternoon. I don't think most people like it, but I don't think most people believe that the state should go after people doing it.
يمكن للمشاهد الآن وبكل بساطة أن يواجه أصحاب أن تحر ما لن تضر ببعض ما جاء في هذا المقطع من فظائع، فإن رفضوها رغم علمهم بأنها لا تنتهك عبارتهم المقدسة، فقد أقام عليهم الحجة وأراهم بالواقع لا بالنظريات حقيقة ما يدعون المسلمين إلى تبديل كلام ربهم به. أخيراً، فإن من يرى أن ما ورد في هذا المقطع هو من الحريات التي يجب حمايتها، فلا يمكن لنا أن نقول بأن مكانه هو حديقة الحيوانات، لأنه وكما رأينا سيكون خطراً عليها.